Hey everybody, it's Tyler Austin. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoy this kind of content, be sure to check out the links in the description below to both my player and my Patreon channels. With that being said, I'm going to talk about the biggest mistake people make when it comes to zeroing their rifle. And this is more of a problem for rifles than it is for pistols. And that mistake is going to be not taking into account your height over bore offset when zeroing your rifle. Inevitably, I go to a rifle class somewhere and there is at least one guy, if not multiple guys there, who are confused as to why their point of aim, point of impact differences are not what they expected it to be. So their holdovers and their hold unders are not what they expected it to be at, particularly at further distances, 100 yards, 200 yards, 300 yards, etc. And almost always the reason for this is because they didn't take into account their height over bore offset when zeroing their rifle. And this is a very critical factor when it comes to zeroing your rifle, because your height over bore is going to make a dramatic difference in terms of your point of aim, point of impact differences, especially out at ranges, especially like, again, 100 yards, 200 yards, 300 yards, etc. So let's just use an example here to prove my point. So let's say we're zeroing an AR using 55 grain ammunition, and with a muzzle velocity of around 2,750 feet per second, which is roughly the muzzle velocity you should expect out of like an 11.5-inch AR. And I'm going to be using a 50. The example I'm going to be using is with a 50-yard zero, because that's my personal zero range preference. And for one example, we're going to have a rifle that has a 2.5-inch height over bore offset, and the other one's going to have a 4-inch offset. So with an AR, again, zeroed at 50 yards, with a 2.5-inch height over bore offset, at 100 yards, you'd expect to be roughly 1 inch high. Okay? At 200 yards, you're going to be more or less point of aim, point of impact, and at 300 yards, you're going to be roughly 7 inches low. So again, that's a 50-yard zero using a 2.5-inch offset. Now, if we move over to a 4-inch offset, things change pretty dramatically. At 100 yards, you're going to be roughly 3 inches high. At 200 yards, you're going to be about 4 inches high. And at 300 yards, you're going to be more or less point of aim, point of impact. So you can see, using the same zero, but with a difference of a 1.5-inch offset, the dramatic difference it has in terms of your point of aim, point of impact. So a lot of people will go on a ballistic calculator online, and they'll just type in different ranges they might want to zero at, or a specific range they want to zero at, to see what their point of aim, point of impact difference is going to be. But a lot of times they don't take into account their height over bore on that, and they get false data, because a lot of times these ballistic calculators online will have a preset. A lot of times for like an AR, it's going to be 2 inches, 2.5 inches, that preset, and they have a different. And if they have a different height over bore to that, they're going to be getting false data in terms of the trajectories they should expect out at distance. So be sure to take in your height over bore offset when zeroing your rifle, so you don't run into that problem. Also, pro tip here, a lot of people also make this mistake. They think that whatever the height that is listed on the mount itself is the height over bore. That is not true. That is just simply the height of the optic mount itself. So you need to make sure that you take that into account as well, because it's your true height over bore is going to be basically the height of the optic mount plus the height of your actual optic too, in a lot of cases, added to the height in which the rail sits over your bore. So for example, for this GBRS Lerna mount, this thing has a 2.91 inch height. But I need to add that to the roughly 1 inch that the rail, the 1 inch of height that the rail sits up over the bore line. So that makes for a roughly 4-inch height over bore offset. So don't make that mistake either. Anyways, I hope you found this video helpful and informative. Thank you so much for watching.